Let's make the best brown butter chocolate chip cookies. All right, we've got a small cast of ingredients for our chocolate chip cookies, which is great. Super simple recipe. I've got the brown butter that I already browned, and I've got granulated sugar, dark brown sugar. I really like the extra depth of flavor of dark brown versus light brown sugar. 2 large eggs, vanilla, which I did not pre-measure because you measure that with your heart. I've got all-purpose flour. This is baking powder, baking soda, and salt, and then our chopped chocolate. The full recipe with step-by-step directions and photos is on my website, and I'll have that linked down below. All right, so we're gonna start off with the brown butter, which I made ahead of time. Okay, so when you add your brown butter, you wanna make sure you're scraping all the brown bits out of the bottom of your measuring cup, because that's where all the flavor is. If you're not familiar with brown butter, it is delicious. It is a game changer in so many recipes. All right, next we're gonna add our granulated sugar and our brown sugar. I like to use dark brown sugar because I think it gives a better depth of flavor, but you can use light if you want. I'm gonna whisk that together. All right, so I'm gonna whisk in our 2 large eggs, and I just added enough vanilla until I felt like, it was right. We're gonna whisk that in until it's just combined. You don't wanna overmix here because we're not trying to whip air in. This is not like a cake batter where we want it fluffy. We want the cookies to be nice and dense and chewy in the middle, not cakey. So that should be enough. All right, now we're gonna switch over to a spatula because all that flour is just gonna get clogged up in your whisk. So I've got my 3 cups of flour. Make sure you get all of it. And I've got a teaspoon of baking soda, a teaspoon of baking powder, and a ½ teaspoon of salt. I'm just gonna stir that in. You need a little bit of elbow grease for this part. If you don't feel like, using a little muscle here, you could just get out your mixer for this portion, but it's not really necessary. All right, so if you get to this point and you're thinking this dough is really crumbly, what the heck? Don't worry, it'll come together. Like I said, you just need a little bit of elbow grease for this part. And you don't really need to worry about overmixing here. It's not like a cake batter. All right, so once your dough has come together and formed a cohesive dough, it's ready. So there's no more flour bits that are unincorporated, which it looks like I actually still have a couple more spots to get. Make sure you kind of go down into the bottom of the bowl and fold it over on itself to make sure you're getting all those last little dry bits of flour mixed in. Next, we're gonna add the chocolate. I'm just gonna fold that in. I'm getting a little bit of an arm workout here, so you're really gonna earn your cookies. All right, so our chocolate is all mixed in, and now the most important part, quality control. One of the best parts about this recipe is that your dough doesn't really need to chill. It just needs a short rest on the counter while you preheat your oven, clean up your dishes. All right, so we're gonna scoop our dough into balls that are about 100 grams. I just think there's less room for error when a recipe gives you weights because you just know exactly how you're measuring your dough balls then. There's a lot of room for error, I think, when a recipe just says, make your dough balls a tablespoon in size. So I prefer to use my kitchen scale here. And if you're thinking 100 grams of cookie dough is way too much for one cookie, first of all, you're wrong. And second of all, yes, you can make them smaller. Sometimes when you get to the bottom of the bowl, there's not really any chocolate left. I like to reserve a little bit of extra for that and for topping any bare spots off on our cookie dough. Looks like we're gonna get 13 cookies. And I like to get every last drop of dough out of the bowl. So I saved some extra chocolate from earlier, and I'm just going to use that to fill in any bare spots on the tops of our cookies. It's going to give them that bakery look and just make sure they come out looking really pretty and extra delicious and mouth-watering. All right, we're gonna place our cookie dough balls on a parchment-lined cookie sheet. And I'm just gonna do about 5 on a sheet because you do wanna leave some room for them to spread, and these are larger. All right, these are going in the oven for about 5 minutes at 400 degrees. And then we're gonna reduce the oven temp to 365 for an additional 4 to 5 minutes. I find that baking at 2 different temperatures helps them get that nice crispy exterior while staying really gooey inside. All right, if you want your cookies to go from looking kind of meh to looking bakery fabulous, use a round cutter to scoot them into perfect circles while they're still hot from the oven. If you let them sit first, this won't work. Also notice I am not cutting off the edges of my cookies. I am placing the cutter around them and using it to shape them. All right, and to complete that bakery-worthy cookie look, we are going to use yet some more extra chopped chocolate to fill in any little gaps on top of the baked cookies. While they're fresh out of the oven, the tops should still be soft enough that you can nestle a few extra pieces of chocolate in. These cookies have been cooling, and I just want to show you that they are in fact baked. You can tell by the bottoms, I'm holding them and they're not falling apart. I'm gonna finish them with a little bit of flaky sea salt because I think it is the perfect complement to the sweetness of the cookie. It kind of balances everything out. I'm gonna leave the salt off of some of them because my husband is not a believer in salted cookies. Let me know in the comments if you make this recipe. Happy baking and see you next time.